Here we go, lesson 11. We're going to use trig functions that we worked on in lesson 10 to solve right triangles. We're going to solve for sides and angles. Lesson 11 just focuses on finding the lengths of sides, and then lesson 12 we will focus on finding the angles of right triangles. So learning target, I can use trig functions to solve right triangles. That's going to be our, again, learning target for a couple of days since we're going to do angles in a separate lesson. So I can use special right triangles to determine trig ratios geometrically. I can use trig functions and or Pythagorean theorem to find missing sides. It's important that you also know when to use each one and use them appropriately. And then I can identify and explain trig identities. So we spent lesson 10 setting up these trig identities, trig functions, the SOHCAHTOA, practicing all of the different ratios. And now we're going to use it to find missing sides of right triangles. So if you have a right triangle and you have two of the three sides, then you don't want to use this. Stick to Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theorem is shorter, faster, easier to remember, easier to set up. Pythagorean theorem comes first. That's your first option. However, if in this triangle, you only have one side, then you don't have enough to fill in for the Pythagorean theorem, so you can't use it. So option B, if you have a right triangle and you want to find a side, is to use a trig function. So we are going to label the two sides. Remember that it's all based on an angle. This is the only angle we know. We could find this angle because remember that it's a right triangle, right? Or it's a triangle, so they have to add up to 180. This one's already 90 degrees, so these two have to add up to 90. So I could find this one, but like why? Why? So that would just be an extra step. So based off this angle, 2 is the hypotenuse, right? Because that's across from the right angle. That's the longest side. 2 is the hypotenuse. X is over here right next to 38. So it is the adjacent side. We are only going to use the main three, the big three, sine, cosine, tangent. We're not going to do any of the other ones for any of the solving. Never. Sine, cosine, tangent. So you're going to look back, write SOHCAHTOA at the top, look back in your notes, something, so that you can determine which of the three trig functions uses those two sides. So which of those three uses the hypotenuse and the adjacent? Well, it is cosine. So we're going to set up an equation. Cosine of, remember how we would put like a letter here for the angle or a theta for the angle? Well, this time we actually know what the angle is. The angle is 38.2. So cosine of 38.2 degrees. Okay, this is not being multiplied. This is like cosine's a function like a square root or a squared. So it's cosine of 38.2 degrees is equal to, cosine is the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse. So the adjacent side is x divided by the hypotenuse is 2. This goes directly into your calculator. You do have to be sure there are different modes in your calculator, and I would bet most of yours are probably already in degrees, but there's also something called radians. So you should grab whatever calculator you are going to use and type this in and make sure that you get the same thing as me. If you don't, then you're probably in the wrong mode. So I'm going to use the cosine button and then 38.2. I should make sure that I am in degrees because that would be bad. Okay, so this, using my calculator, is 0.7859. I'm going to stop there. Equals x over 2. And then from there, it's just an algebraic equation that you need to solve. So how do we get rid of that x being divided by? We're going to multiply both sides by 2. So just like in the last, those cancel out. Just like in the last unit, don't use this like I still have the full thing in my calculator. So I still have that full decimal. I'm just going to hit times 2. And then it won't, the earlier and more often you round, the further off you're going to be and more likely that you'll get marked down for it. And delta 5717. So the length of this side is 1.5717. Now, make sure that your answer makes sense. If the hypotenuse is 2, that should be the longest side. So your side should be less than 2. So if you got like 58, something's wrong. Also, if you got a negative number, something's wrong. So one of the cool things about this is that you can really, like, it's not a good way to check to see if you got the exact right answer, but for sure check to see if it's a reasonable answer. If you want to pause and try this next one right here, that would be a good opportunity for that. This one is a little bit tougher. It's got one little bit tougher thing. So I'm going to label the two sides again. X is the hypotenuse. 31 is across from 54, sitting across the table. So this is the opposite. So I look back up there. Which of the 3 main functions uses hypotenuse and opposite? That is the sine function. So sine of the angle is 54 degrees. Sine of 54 is equal to, sine is the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse, the first letter over the second letter. So the opposite is 31.6 divided by the hypotenuse is x. So this is a tough one for people to solve. People really struggle with this step right here. You could do this as a decimal first. You can do it now or you can do it in the next step. I'm going to do it in the next step. You can't just divide by 31.6 because x is in the denominator. So that does not work. The easiest way, I think, for people to do it is to cross multiply. So put this over a 1, and we're going to cross multiply. So we get 1 times 31.6 is just 31.6. And then equals x times sine of 54 degrees. So now you have x out of the denominator. We do not like solving when x is in the denominator. That does not go well. So to fix that, we're going to cross multiply. Now x is out of the denominator. This is x times sine of 54. So we need to divide by sine of 54 to isolate that x. If I do it on one side, then I have to do it on this side. So these, sine over 54, that just is 1, simplifies to 1. So I just have 1x equals, and this you can type in exactly as is. So 31.6, and then divided by sine button 54. No degrees in your calculator. Like you do that by setting the mode into degrees so you don't actually put the symbol. So I got 39.06. So that's the hypotenuse. Does that make sense? Well, this side's 31 and my hypotenuse has to be the long side. So yeah, I'm bigger, but it's also not 1,000, right? 1,000 probably wouldn't make sense, but that's a reasonable answer. The next section, kind of like we did in lesson 10, is it's the exact same thing. I just didn't draw the triangle for you. You have to draw it. You don't have to draw it well. It doesn't have to be accurate. It doesn't have to be to scale. Just get a right triangle on there and make sure that you label things okay. So it says that C is the right angle. So C goes right there. Pick an angle to be A. I'm just going to pick this one. So that's angle A, which is 32.6 degrees, which would mean this is angle B. Remember that capitals are angles, lowercase are the sides, and they go across. So angle B is across from side B. Angle C is across from side C. So side C is over here, it's 6. And then once you get it set up, now it's exactly like the first two. So here's my angle. B is next to my angle, so B is adjacent. and 6 is the hypotenuse. So we have our picture drawn, our sides labeled. The next step is to write the equation. So which of the 3 functions uses adjacent and hypotenuse? That's cosine of, you need an angle in here. You have to have an angle. Cosine by itself means nothing. It has to be cosine of, what is the angle? 32.6 degrees equals, cosine is adjacent, so B over hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is 6. I always say I should never use B's and 6's. Look at, you can't even tell the difference. I should not use them together. Okay, so up here, remember up here, I found the decimal first, right? I found the decimal and then I multiplied by 2. So we could do that. You could also multiply first. So I'm going to times 6 to get rid of that, and then times 6 over here. So those cancel because 6 over 6 is just 1. And then I could type the whole thing in at one time, whichever you like, it doesn't matter. 5.05. Is it reasonable? Yep. Hypotenuse is 6. 5 is in reasonable side length. Okay, you do this one. If you didn't do the other one, do this one. If you didn't pause up above, try one now because we're at a good spot. I'm going to draw the exact same triangle because I don't care. I will draw the same triangle every single time because it doesn't matter unless it's a word problem where I'm actually trying to like make it look like something. I'm just going to get a triangle down there. B is 70. C is the right angle. Angle A is 6, or side A, sorry, side A is 6. So it's across from angle A over here. And we're supposed to be finding side B. So, oh, I did it again. So we want to find side B over there. Okay, so picture drawn, label our sides. This is adjacent. B is opposite. Next step is to identify the function and write the equation. So this is the first time we've had opposite and adjacent. That is tangent. Right? Tangent of what? Tangent of 70 degrees equals opposite is B over adjacent is 6. Okay, so again, you can do decimal first and then multiply by the 6, or you can multiply by the 6 first and then enter the whole thing into your calculator at one time. Six times the tangent of 70. Okay, that's finding sides. And then we're going to work in, I did 2. We're going to work in some word problems. So sometimes we split them up, or we thought about splitting them up and doing them as their own lesson, but I would just rather incorporate them. I think I drew one. Sometimes I've given you the picture. Oh, I gave you the picture on both of them today. Sometimes I give you the drawing. Sometimes you have to draw them. And to be honest, that's the toughest part, is trying to figure out. Kids struggle with what side is which, what does it look like? So this one says, find the length of a shadow cast by a 10-foot lamppost. So what does a lamppost look like? It goes up and down, right? And it is 10 feet. This we need to talk about. The angle of elevation of the sun is 58 degrees. Find the length of the shadow. So here's the shadow down here. This is a great picture to see what's going on. Here's the shadow. That's what we're trying to find. So can I change it right now? No, I can't. Okay, so if you think about your eyes, right? I need to be in person. I need to talk about this in class so I can show you and act it out. Straight across. Okay, you're looking straight across. To elevate something means to lift it up. So I guess I'll draw an amazing picture. Okay, here's my eyeball. Straight across. To elevate something means up. So if I look up, this angle right here would be the angle of elevation. Elevation means up. So from horizontal, from straight across, what's the angle I'm looking up? The angle, there's also an angle of depression. To depress something, like you press a button, or if you're feeling depressed, that means you're feeling down. So angle of depression is from straight across, from horizontal, if I'm looking down. So down this way, like I'm up on a cliff and I'm looking down at the ocean. That would be an angle of depression. So if you're not given a picture, try to think about those two words and what it means to elevate. Elevate means go up, or depression means go down. So we're trying to find this side right here. So this problem, they already drew it for you, ends up being exactly like those ones up above. Here's my angle. This side is the opposite. This side is the adjacent. So label my sides. Identify which of the functions it is. Opposite and adjacent is tangent. So tangent of the angle of 58 degrees equals opposite is 10 over adjacent is x. So here's another one where we have x on the bottom, and we don't want x in the bottom, right? Because that makes everything difficult. So to get x out of the bottom, we're going to make this one a fraction by putting it over 1, and we're going to cross multiply. So 1 times 10 is 10 equals, remember cross multiply means you multiply the diagonals and then they're equal to each other. The other diagonal is x times tangent of 58. And now you can see that since these are being multiplied and I want to solve for x, I'm going to divide by tangent of 58. So tangent of 58 over tangent of 58, that's just 1. So I get 1x equals, and then on this side, I'm going to type the whole thing in like that. 10 divided by tangent 58 is 6.2, to the nearest tenth of a foot. So 6.2 feet. And put on the other side. It's a word problem, so you should label it 6.2 feet. I shouldn't have given you the picture for the other one, but the other one's a little tougher. Okay, last one. A fire truck has an 84-foot ladder. Okay, so think about there's a truck, right? What does a ladder look like? Here's the ladder right here. That is 84 feet. Leaning against a building. A wall of a building goes straight up and down. So literally, like if you're trying to draw this, literally imagine what those sides look like. If someone's talking about the ground, that is horizontal. If someone's talking about, another one they like to use is like the length of a string if you're flying a kite. What would that look like? That would be this side because you'd have a kite up here and you're holding it and it goes at an angle. So try to really picture these things. That will help you label your sides. The truck is 8 feet tall. So here's the truck. It's actually over here, but this is the truck. It's 8 feet tall. So the ladder starts at the top of the truck. The firefighters want to reach a window that is 75 feet above the ground. So the window's up here at 75 feet. And we need to know if this ladder is long enough. So is this ladder going to reach that 75-foot mark? So let's figure out how far the ladder does reach up the wall. This is already 8, right? So if I find this side right here, I could add the 8 feet to this part, and that would tell me the total how far it reached. So 55 is my angle. My 84 is the hypotenuse. And the wall over here, that's the opposite. So opposite and hypotenuse is the sine function. Sine of 55 degrees equals opposite is x divided by hypotenuse is 84. To solve for x, I need to get rid of that 84. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 84. So 84 times the sine of 55 equals 68.8. So we're thinking, nope, it's not going to reach. This is only 68.8, but that's this part right here. And then we add the 8 feet that it starts off the ground for the fire truck. So 68.8 plus 8. Yes, that's more than 75. Will it be able to reach? Yes. Don't just write yes. Show all the work, figure out all this stuff.